Good morning, everybody. Here we are again with the 2004 Ford Escape. It's a blustery minus 25 degrees to minus 40 wind chill outside, so we're gonna have the heater kicking on today. We'll try to take video when it's not running. If it's running, too bad, because I want to stay warm. Today we are going to be taking a look at lower control arms. This one's got bad ball joints in it at the lower end, and looked like the rubber bushings had also deteriorated, so we're just going to go ahead and replace these lower control arms. They're pretty cheap for, I think these are SKP brand. They'll be just fine for this little thing. Along with that, we're just going to do some, I think these are Moog. We're going to do some sway bar links. The tie rod ends, one of them is no good, so we're going to make sure we do those while we're at it. Always make sure to get an alignment afterwards. After you replace these, you can get them pretty close, but it's not going to be absolutely perfect. So we'll get it as close as we can and get it aligned after. I'm also going to take a look at doing an oil seal for the passenger side CV axle, where it goes into the transmission, the output seal. To do that, I'm going to have to take some stuff back off that I've worked on previously. I might have to take the exhaust down once again. So we'll take a look at that. I'm going to get started on this driver's side. So we'll get it jacked up, we'll get that wheel off, we'll start taking some brakes off, and we'll get to the control arm. Alright, we've got the wheels taken off, and forgot to mention, hey, this is B&B Auto. Give us a like, subscribe, share, comment down below. Help me out a little bit, guys. I enjoy doing this, and I'm going to continue doing it on F-150, Explorers, anything that people bring across in the garage. So, just a local guy helping out friends and family. So, we'll take a look here. So in order to do this lower control arm, we've got a big bolt down there. Let's see if I can show it to you. I don't know if you can see it or not there. We've got that really big bolt there. You can see carefully, see closely right in there, that bushing is just shot in there. So we've got a bolt on the front of it, right there, that we've got to get out. The back one, and we've got to split this ball joint. So you see the bolt there. Let's see if I can get this little guy right there. So we got to take that out, and then this will just drop out of there. It does have a split up in here. There's a split right back in there that I might have to take a wedge and try to spread that a little bit to get this to drop out. Sometimes they get kind of stuck in there. Of course, we're going to take off the sway bar link bolts here and down here to replace that guy. We shouldn't have to pull the axle out of this side. This side, the transmission is dry back up in there. We're not leaking any transmission fluid out of this side. We're leaking some out of the other side, so we're going to take a look at doing that. So what I'm going to do is, on this side, I don't even think I'm going to take off the brakes. I don't have to take off the rotor, I don't have to take off the axle nut, take this out of here. I should be able to just drop this out of here. So we will get after it, and hopefully I'm right. Alright, I got everything with some penetrating lube. Get everything sprayed down where all the bolts are. And so hopefully we don't have any issues. I know these sway bar links are always a good time to try to get the nut off without getting them to spin. Well, usually I can just get since you're wrecking them anyway, you can usually just get a big vice grip in there to get those off. I'm gonna go ahead and start with this tie rod length, tie rod end. We got a 15/16 wrench on here that fits on the nut. Alright, looks like it is standard threads, so I'm just going to go ahead and add my wrench on here. I'm going to give it some taps with the metal hammer. The mallet just wasn't giving it the shock it needed, so. Okay, so I've got that broke loose from there a little bit, but it is turning the main shaft, so I'm going to try to hold that. This is a 15, it might be a standard size, but we're going to give it a go with this 15. Alright. I'll work that jam nut back and forth a little bit. Actually, I want it to be in the same position as it was. I have a tie rod end here. So here's a new one compared to the old one. If I match them up center to the end of it, it does line up exactly. So I don't really want to move this nut. I just wanted to loosen it up so I can spin this off of there. So now that it's got a little movement, we'll just kind of put it right there just so it doesn't go anywhere. And then we'll go ahead and pull this guy off there. And an 18 on a big ratchet. Alrighty. Alright, grab myself some safety squints just in case something goes sideways on this thing. Oh no, just look at that. So much better when you have a nice strong tool to do what you're trying to do here. What you can see there. So I'm sure that's locked in there wonderfully. Give a little couple taps of this before switching it up to a big guy. Look at that, it's popping out. Cake. So I'm gonna go ahead, change our light here a little, and go ahead and see if I can twist this gun off of there. Don't really have any flat spots, so go ahead and grab myself a vice grip or pliers. Twist off of here now. Not too bad. There we go. Alright, so there we go. This one, I think this one is the good one. Yeah, I don't really feel a bunch of excessive play in it. The boot is definitely dry. The grease is hard in there. And they're cheap enough, so put on a new one. Okay, so we are essentially 180 degrees out. The original one, well, it is what it is, right? So, I think I'm going to turn this intermediate shaft 180 degrees. So this lines up exactly how it was, because there it's hitting the jam. And if we want the shaft to come out, which is what we need to do, just kind of do some preliminary alignment here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that. Tighten that nut up instead of actually having to move that. So I'm going to just leave that alone. We go ahead and work on getting these sway bar link out of here. Alright, thought I'd bring it back here real quick. I picked up a gear wrench, the through socket, I don't know, whatever you call them. But, so you can use another tool through the middle of there. This set was somewhere around $65, I believe. And then I've got a M5 for this. It's rusty, so if you might have to just hammer them in there a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and get this set up. Oh, and this is a 14. All right, sorry about the noise, the heater's going. Oh, there it goes, shut off. So what I've got is I've got an M5 tip on my screwdriver tip extension for a drill. And then I'm going to use a 1/4-inch socket. Then I've got an adapter so I can put it on a 3/8 ratchet. So I'm gonna put that on there. And I've got my extension with the, whatever you call these things. I can't remember what you call them. Pass-through style socket. Put it on there like so. Get that through there. Give that a couple taps, that's tight. Grab this guy here. And we're going to go ahead and try to loosen this up and hold this one. There we go. That works pretty good. Didn't have to use a vice grip on the back or mess around with that. Alright, there's the top one. Piece of cake if you use the right tools. Get them lubed up well, and I'm going to go after the bottom one next, and we'll get this out of there. Alright, for this lower one on here, since it's backwards, I just didn't have enough room to get an Allen head in there easily. And done this in the past, works out pretty good. Get yourself a good vice grip, not one of those cheap junk ones. And they've got an Allen in the tightener. So I actually just throw that on a socket or an impact gun and tighten it up on there so it's good and tight. And I'm using that pass-through socket on the back again. And we'll get this one off of here. Go, just like that. And since I cranked this thing down so tight, I'm just going to use my gun to loosen it back up. Go, tie rod out. This one's, this side is pretty loose, popping around in there a little bit. This side's real tight, so this is what it is. Alright, next we're going to go after the ball joint bolt right down in here. 17 fits on mine. And we're going to try it with the little gun first and see if it'll come off. Loud noises. Okay, well, I worked it back and forth a bit. I don't know what's going on yet, but I did get the nut off of there. I think threads are bad. Wow. Look at that. Threads are toast. So, I'm gonna have to get a new bolt. Alright. I got that bolt out of there. I'm not gonna separate that quite yet. I'm gonna go ahead and get this plastic out of the way just to make it easier to get at this front control arm bolt. So I'm gonna throw you on time lapse and get this piece of plastic out of here. It's kind of annoying. There's a push clip here. Mine's got a broken bolt there. There's a bolt there. This one's got some other bolts and some screws and some zip ties. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting that out of the way. Alright, got our plastic shroud out of the way. And we're going to go after that front control arm bolt right in there. I'm just going to go ahead and use the big gun and get that one zipped out. We'll come back over here and get that big guy up from the bottom zipped out. Alright, so this one's a 15 millimeter. And we're just going to go for it. Loud noises. There we go. We've got a 21. Loud noises. There's enough for this little guy, so we'll finish it off with that. There we go. You can see how big that bolt is. You're going to need some power. Alright, next I'm going to try to separate right here. First I'm just going to try a pry bar and see if I can get it to pop out of there. If not, I'll have to get back in the slot. I can grab you and show you here. There, you should be able to see that slot down in there. So we'll try to pry this out of there, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I've got myself a little chisel punch here. Give that some taps. Well, there we go, what a battle. Had you on time lapse, but ended up being able to get a few different size punches wedged into there, and then used my broken pickle fork piece to hammer in there. So I don't really wouldn't have mattered if this had the end on it or not. And once I got enough pressure to really get it moving, some good hits with the hammer, and there she popped out. So now we'll pull that bolt out and get this lower control arm out of here. Nice and wedged in there in the back. There we go. That is out. Yeah, those bushings there, they are shot. This front one doesn't seem too bad, but all it does is rotate. The back one has to twist. If you can see here on this ball joint, it's all super loose, pops in and out. That's your rattling noise when you go over bumps right there. So we'll grab a new one and get the new one put in. All right, we just got back from a lunch break. I ran and got some hardware because, check this out. So that 17 on this driver's side was this bolt right here with the stripped out threads at the end of it on the nut too. There's no threads left inside that nut, and it just did not want to come off there. I decided before I made a hardware run, I was working on this little guy back here. This doesn't want to pop off, and I don't want to damage the window and crank too hard on it or anything, so I just drilled this out, put a new bolt in, so now it actually does what it's supposed to and stays against the window. Anyway, back to what we're actually working on today. So I pulled out the bolt from the passenger side ball joint over there, and it was this guy right here. So I went to my local hardware store, well, I went to Menards, and got a new bolt for it. They had one the right size and everything. I just didn't have a lock nut for it, so I'm going to be putting some Loctite on that nut. So, got those there, so we're going to start putting this driver's side back together with the lower control arm down there. Alrighty, blizzard is raging on out there. So, what we're going to do, go ahead and squirt some oil up in those threads. This one over here too. Just make it so those go in decently. It came out alright, but there we've got our new control arm. Saw how I kind of took it out. Swiveled it out this way to get this one out. So I think that's how I'm going to start, is by getting this wedged in this side. Stick that in there. Definitely want to get these started by hand. Not going to tighten that up yet, just got to thread it in. And we're going to try to swivel this guy around over here. I lined up the ball joint spot. We'll have to squeeze that or hammer that in. Hopefully I can get this together here. Alright. I'm going to give this a few taps. Don't do aggressive, I want to get in there. There we go. About ending it. Yeah. Try to put this in place. There we go. Alright. Okay, I don't want to tighten that one down. I want to get weight on the car first before I tighten that one down. This one's not that big of a deal because it's holding it up. But this one, since it hinges on that one, we don't want that one to be tightened before there's weight on it. Once we get weight on it, then we can tighten that one up. So now that both of those are in there, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this one up with the little gun. Then take my long ratchet, put some good torque on it. I'm sure there's a torque spec, but we're just going to go nice and tight. It's not going to go anywhere. So there's that guy. We've got it tapped in all the way. You can take a light and look behind it, look through the hole. I don't know if you can see that. But if you can see all the way through the hole and it's round, you've got it in far enough. If you can see the stud, you don't have it in far enough, and the bolt was not going to go in there. We've got our new bolt, our new nut. Fast. There we go. Put it back on there. This thing's not coming out. Alright. It tightened up nicely. It didn't even spin around on the other side. That's the way it should be. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and get this sway bar link installed here. Pretty simple. These aftermarket ones are kind of nice. They've got a spot for your wrench on the back side, and they've got the hex inside the tip, so you can do it however works for you. We're just going to go ahead and get that one started. This one, a little longer. Hold on. Just got to flip in there for it. Flip down button. It's not going to go now. It's going to be a tight squeeze. You know what it is on there. That's okay. I'm going to take this back. Alright, I was being dumb. Sometimes 2 seconds later the solution presents itself. Turn it. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, especially when you're making a video, you do something dumb. That's all right. This is a 15 millimeter on this one. Nut. It's a little bigger. It's a 17 on this Moog. Kind of goofy. Whatever. No big deal. Let's see if I can get you some light here. Sway bar link installed. We'll grease it a little bit later. Actually, maybe I'll grease this one now. It'll be a little easier to get to. Just enough till you see this rubber puff up, and you know you've got grease in there. Pause here and take a quick look at the other side. Alright, well, as wrong as it seems, my solution, since I don't have any other parts and I'm not going to go get any right now, we're just sway bar links. So took the grease fitting out since it comes right out the back side of it. Well, I'd filled it full of grease already, and took the grease fitting out, cleaned it up, and put some black, ultra black gasket sealer on it to seal up the hole. Doesn't bother me too much. This is, I can always replace these fairly easily if I need to, if they start rattling again. Essentially, now it's just a sealed one at the one end instead of re-greasable. Not a big deal. They're pretty cheap. They're Moog, or maybe they're SKP, I can't remember, off of Rock Auto. But that will give you some idea if you're doing these. I would suggest to get ones that don't have the grease zert on the backside. If it has it on the actual side of the drum, then you'll be okay. But if you have it on the backside, it's going to run into the framing here, the unibody. So now it fits, no problem. Happy with it. Bolts are tight for that. I'm going to move on to getting this tie rod end back on this side, and then move over to the other side and do that one. I probably won't video that unless I decide to start getting in to do that axle seal. This is fairly straightforward. We just got to put it back up in here. Drop that down onto there. Turn that a little bit. There we go. Just wasn't quite lined up. Got some taps down. Got our castle nut. And we're going to go ahead and zip that on there. Good, so it's tight, and then line your hole up. Might try to give this another zip here. There we go. And we'll put our cotter pin in. previous cotter pin's a little different. I like to do one over the bolt, one around the side. That's on there now. Give that some grease. Alright, that's pretty hard. We don't want to have stuff popping out of it. And other than tightening up the front bolt with some weight on it, we are good to go on this side. I decided I want to tighten this nut up over here, kind of get this side buttoned back up before I have to go anywhere. So I'm actually just going to lift up on the bottom of this brake rotor. I've got a nice rubber pad with my jack, so I'm going to take the weight of the car on this until I start lifting this side up over here. Alright, we're off the jack stand. So now I can go ahead and tighten up this front bolt. This one's not nearly as big as the back one. It's a 15 millimeter. But I'm going to give it a little manual clickage here. Click. Alright, I'm going to let my jack back down. So then I can put my plastic shield back on over here, just a couple push pins and a couple bolts. I'm not going to show that. It's easy enough. You saw it come off. You can figure that out. And just take a good look around. Everything looks good. Everything's installed. All the bolts are tight. And it's solid. So we'll get the wheel put back on this, and yeah, we'll go from there. Alright, well, I've decided. I'm over here on the passenger side, and if you look, you can't really see from here, but if you look down from the bottom, we'll take a look here. You can see right there we've got a little bit of transmission fluid leaking, and where it's coming from is the axle seal. It's right above that O2 sensor right there is where the seal is. I've got a seal for it, and I'd like to replace it, so I'm going to go after that. I'd rather not pull down this exhaust, but if I have to, I can. It's been down recently, and yeah, so to do that, I'm going to take off the big caliper bracket bolts here, hang it up top, get that out of the way, take off this big axle nut. Of course, I'm taking off tie rod ends, sway bar links. I'll probably just go ahead and pull this whole knuckle off of here, since I recently had these out as well. I gotta think about that. Anyway, I'm gonna get this stuff out of the way, and then this axle comes out of that part right there. Comes out of this. You just pop this forward and it comes out. Then there's some 13s that hold on this shield, and you can take out the intermediate shaft, and then the bearing is back in there. So we'll get down to that point. I'm going to get this torn apart. I'm not going to specifically film it. Brakes are easy enough to come apart. I just don't know if I want to take this off of here and take the whole hub out or not. I may not. This should come off fine. It's been off. And yeah, just take you along here on some time lapse. Alright, we'll take a look into the wheel well here. I just decided to take that whole thing off there. The wheel speed sensor came out, not too bad, just a bunch of wiggling. Came right out. It's got everything torn apart. I've already got the new tie rod end on, so these are out. So if you take a look in here, you see that nut right there. That nut is part of this cross member that goes across right here. That holds that in. So if you've got to drop this exhaust down, you've got to take this cross member off. I think on the second gens, my friend's 2010 does not have that crossbar. It only has the bigger one that's back here. Kind of funny that they want that one on this one, but it's there, so I put it back. But to get that off, this nut just wants to spin. You cannot get to that nut without this control arm being out. So I'm going to try to, as you can see, I've got the axle pulled out of here. There's a bracket right up there that holds in the intermediate shaft. I've got the intermediate shaft pulled out of there now, and that just pulls right out of there. Piece of cake. Yeah, it doesn't sit in there real hard. It goes all the way through. I don't know if you can see back in there. It goes all the way through to the inside. Not really sure where it's leaking. There's a I've got a seal for the outer shaft here.
I'm going to try to get in there without taking the exhaust down. We will see how that goes. If I don't think I'm going to be able to get in there, you see there's a little aluminum shield. So I'm going to go after that first of all. It looks like there's 3 8mm on it. So I'm going to try to see if I can get that out of there, or how I can get that out, because the top bolt kind of seems like it's behind the exhaust manifold, behind the catalytic converter, come down from the exhaust manifold. So that might be a little interesting. We'll just have to go after it and see what I can do, and I'll keep you up to date. I know I definitely have a leak coming out of there, whether that's all the way from the inside seal. If it is, that's not getting replaced because I'm not pulling the transfer case off of this thing. I'm kind of thinking it is the inside seal because it is transmission fluid and not gear oil. I think the outside seal only holds gear oil, but I'm not too certain. So I'm gonna go after it anyway and take a little bit more of a closer look and see if I can get that shield out of here. Well, I've decided that I just am not going to be capable of replacing the seal behind here. I've got to get this plastic one popped off, and to do that I've got to get this metal heat shield out of here. There is one final bolt up top there that I just can't get to. I can't get a wrench on it, can't get a short socket on it. The only thing I could get on it would be a swivel 8 socket. I mean, I've got an 8 on a swivel, but it's just too long to get up in there. So I would need a swivel socket, or maybe one of those low profile style ratchets like I have, but in 1/4 inch variety. Might be able to get to it with one of those. Since I don't have this plastic seal, I only have the seal behind it. I don't want to damage that plastic seal. I was kind of prying on it with a pry bar back here, and it just doesn't want to come out of there. So I don't know if that's actually sealing liquid. I guess I'm just going to have to do some more research on that and come back to it another day, because I'm not pulling the exhaust manifold off the back. I should have done this while I had the heads off of the engine and out, but it kind of didn't cross my mind. I was more concerned about getting the engine back together and working properly. So I'm going to go ahead and get this axle put back in here and start working on reassembly of the suspension with the new components. And we'll just keep an eye on the transmission levels. It's transmission fluid that's leaking, not gear oil, so it's a very small leak. It doesn't really drip a whole bunch or anything, so just kind of makes everything wet down here. And I figured I would give it a shot since I was in here again, and I have failed. Oh well.
Okay, we've got all this back together, but as a few other guys say, I love my job so much I do it twice. Forgot this little shield that goes over the bearing for the intermediate shaft. So I could leave it out. Doesn't look like it does a whole lot, but being a slight perfectionist, I guess I'm gonna go put this back in. So that means I'm gonna pull the axle back out. I'm gonna take these bolts out of here, flop this forward, pull the axle, put this back on there. Yay. Alright, here we are. We've got her back together again. Second time. Actually, this axle assembly has been apart at least 4 times now. But whatever, just makes it quicker the next time. That was really quick pulling it out just to put that little shroud back in back there. So, as you saw in the time lapse, I lifted this up with the jack before I torqued this one down. Get that one nice and tight. With these new A-arms and ball joints and tie rod ends specifically, we're going to take this in to get an alignment done on it. And but it should drive pretty good now until we get it in. I put these right back where they were with the old ones. Made sure that the jam nut stayed where it was, and I spun the shaft out to meet up with the new one if as necessary. So I guess I wanted to point out this little guy. So that's our wheel speed sensor. That was an 8mm. When I did decide to pull the whole knuckle off, as you saw. So I just pulled that out and carefully pried up on this. It's plastic, so you got to be careful. But once you get it out, just put it up there, hung the caliper bracket up there. Don't worry about these rotors. That was a late night mistake. They will be just fine. They're already starting to get down to that groove a little bit. Somehow these got put on upside down. Late night, was thinking about the motor. Crap happens. So all right, well, thanks for watching. I'm going to get the tires back on this, and we'll see you next time. All right, everything's cleaned up. Everything's double checked. Did a nut check on everything, make sure everything's tight, and get these tires thrown back on. Take a look at the temperature. Getting there. -10, -34 wind chill. Beautiful. Well, it's 68 degrees in here. I'm actually a little warm. Foot-pounds on these. I always do my star pattern and then go back to the first one again to make sure that one didn't loosen up at all. A little DeWalt, if I hold the trigger, it'll tighten them to about 120. So I just kind of zip them down so they're tight. Finish them off with this, make sure they're at least 100. So thanks for watching. We're going to jounce the suspension a little bit, and we'll be taking this for a test drive, but we will be getting it in for an alignment. Make sure that those tie rod ends are in the right spots,
and it will drive right and not wear out the tires funky. So make sure you always do that. Be safe, stay warm, have a good night. Thanks for watching.
Subscribe.